Okay, everyone, welcome back to Last Take. This is after the first weekend of NFL football, NFL playoff football. We also had the college football final. So a lot to cover, a lot to get into. Before we start, just as always, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, tell your mother about it. I know my mother just subscribed, so that's huge. We got Donna Sartori on the list of people. So I don't know, Nick, if your mom subscribed.
I don't know if my mom has a YouTube, but I'll get on that ASAP. I'll have an update for you guys next week.
Yeah, so show your mom, 1, how to log into her Gmail, 2, how to sign into YouTube, 3, how to subscribe to Below the Belt Sports. A lot of great content coming, average to slightly above average.
Love that.
Yeah. So we're jumping right into football now. We'll just kind of go in a little chronological order. We could rank the games based on what was best, but I mean, kind of might take a lot out of us. So let's just go chronological. First game was Bills Colts. I think most of it was what we expected. Kind of like a Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs takeover a little bit. At one point, they're up 24-10. The Colts stayed in it for the most of the part. Frank Reich clearly had no interest in winning the game. Maybe he took a page out of Doug Peterson's book and tanking for the draft pick because now the Colts, they're right in that middle area. He left a lot of points on the field. I think that was the biggest story is that they had a chance to win. The Bills didn't really break away, kind of like I thought they would. They had the lead, but they didn't really – they didn't like stomp on the throat because I kind of thought they would like – once they were up 24-10, I thought they were going to, make it like something like 37-10. Like I thought the Colts were going to lie down. But kudos to the Colts for, putting up a fight, but Frank Reich really didn't care.
Yeah, I honestly thought going into it just with how hot the Bills have been that they were going to blow out the Colts. So props to them for staying in it. I think if Andrew Luck was still playing, I really do think this Colts team with everything else they have in place would be a Super Bowl team. And that's not even a knock on Phil Rivers. He had a really good year, I thought, relative to what people expected. But, Andrew Luck would still be, in my mind, a top 5 quarterback in football. So if you were to put him on this Colts team with that defense and everything else they have on the offensive side of the ball, they would be a team we're talking about. But I was glad to see the Bills stay alive just because I really, really do want to see Bills Chiefs in the AFC Championship. I'll keep saying it. If we're robbed of Bills Chiefs, I'm not going to be happy.
Yeah. You bring up Andrew Luck, and it's like you remember like 3 years ago, like the Colts were set as like the team of the future. They were like, they have all this cap space. They got a great line, like a burgeoning defense, and they got Andrew Luck, and then he just retired. So, you bring it up, like they kind of had to deal with an aging Phil Rivers. They got kind of thrown into having to deal with Jacoby Brissett last year. So they got thrown into sort of, we've got a great team, but we don't have our quarterback now. So they got thrown into sort of like let's just try to find our guy ASAP. Phil Rivers did what he could, but at the end of the day, he doesn't have really a shoulder to throw from anymore. I don't know. I still will never know how he throws the ball the way he does. But yeah, they had to just kind of put something together as quick as they could after the surprise retirement. And, the best they could manage was a first-round exit. So I didn't expect them to beat the Bills, but they made it a better game than I thought they would.
Underrated takeaway was that late, I think it was Zach Pascal play where he clearly gets up untouched and fumbles the ball. And there's not even exaggerating the longest replay I've ever seen in my life, like a 15-minute replay just for the NFL to get it wrong. It's unbelievable how little people care about an egregiously wrong call like that after a replay, as long as it doesn't affect the outcome of the game. Because if the Colts go to score there, go to overtime and win, we're talking about that play for years. It's the new, Saints conference championship game pass interference. It's literally, that would be the number one topic up until next NFL season. But thankfully, outcome unaffected, and everyone just says, we'll get them next time.
Yeah, it makes you think that maybe the replacement refs are back. Do you remember that era of the NFL when there was like the whole league was just covered with replacement refs and there was like terrible calls all the time, like the Fail Mary, the one guy up, the one guy saying no, and it's
who caught the Fail Mary? Was that Doug Baldwin?
No, I think Golden Tate caught it.
Golden Tate, okay.
I think it was Golden Tate, the Fail Mary, yeah.
Well, nobody really caught it.
Yeah, the receiver caught Golden Tate, but that was it.
Golden Tate was near the ball.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of the Seahawks, I'm going down swinging with them. This is our old baseball shirt. We were the Ramsey Rams. I decided to kind of roll with the punches on that one. Seahawks lost to the Rams in one of the more disappointing games I've seen in a long time. A complete paradigm to what the Seahawks were at the beginning of the year, where their offense was amazing, and this is in the beginning. Their offense was amazing. Defense was an absolute joke. Now, here we are at the end of the season. Defense is amazing. Offense is an absolute joke. And today, actually, this is about an hour ago, the Seahawks fired Brian Schottenheimer, their offensive coordinator. And this is how they said it. It is unbelievable. Brian Schottenheimer, this is from the Seattle Seahawks page, their official Seattle Seahawks at Seahawks page. Brian Schottenheimer is a fantastic person and coach, and we thank him for the last 3 years. Citing philosophical differences, we have parted ways. What? What does that mean? Philosophical differences? What does that even mean? Okay, so I actually know what it means, but it is the craziest way to say that this guy sucks and we don't know what to do now. So the idea is that the Seahawks want to run the ball more next season. Pete Carroll said it in an interview the other day after they lost. He wants to run the ball essentially twice as much as he did this year, because in the beginning of the season it was let Russ cook, and that surprisingly worked. And then the second half of the season, while they were trying to fix the defense, they said the defense can't be good unless the run is working. So they went back to the run. Offense started to suck. Defense started to get better. So this complete paradigm shift happened all because of Pete Carroll. And Brian Schottenheimer is kind of the scapegoat of the situation. While I think that he is a lot of the problems. He didn't make the proper adjustments throughout the game. A lot of it has to fall on Pete Carroll. But Pete Carroll is not the one that's getting fired. Brian Schottenheimer is. Our GM just got extended as well, John Schneider. He's actually great, but it's a problem that I'm going to see for a few years now, having to deal with the old Pete Carroll ways of run the ball, good defense, and letting Russell Wilson just have to just make magic happen. So that's the future of the Seahawks. But we'll talk about what happened this past game. Was Russell Wilson was not good. I'll say it. He held the ball way too long. As much as people have tried to blame Carroll for Russell Wilson's non-success or lack thereof the past few years, this one was on Russell. He held the ball way too long. You saw Tyler Lockett open multiple times. If you go back and watch it, he was open on first downs at least 3 or 4 times where Russ should have gotten rid of the ball. But I still think that he is PTSD from having to make plays in the beginning of his career. That he just kind of sees someone open. He's like, well, that's not going to work. But let me look deeper, and then he gets sacked. So I need a bit of a breath, Nick. You give me your take.
I'm still a little shook, first of all, just reading, because I saw they fired Schottenheimer. I didn't actually read how it was worded. That's unbelievable. It's not you, it's me, a coach, which is unbelievable. That was actually, I don't know if you heard, they were playing on the Fan this morning. Jeff Lurie had some comments, the Eagles owner. They were asking him, what do you want in your next coach? And it was it's got to be a guy that's accountable, a leader of men. And he's actually Doug really does a lot of those things. It's then why are you firing him? It's just it's crazy that what the world has come to now, that they're phrasing these firings like this. Just say, yeah, no, the guy fucking won 4 games. Our offense sucked the last 10 games, whatever. But my one takeaway, and this will be a big theme for me in this episode, Jamal Adams. I said it whenever it was 2 weeks ago when they won the division, lighting up the cigar, that's bulletin board material. That, this guy, I get it, he came from the Jets who sucked. But you win the division, job is not close to finished, not when you're a team like the Seahawks that's perennially, it's a tough word, in the playoffs. They've won a Super Bowl, went to another. You have Russell Wilson. It's a Super Bowl or bust team. Defense or not, whatever it is. It's a team that had a very legitimate chance to win a Super Bowl this year. And you're lighting up a cigar for winning the division. And Jared Goff called them out after the game. He said, we noticed things like that. We noticed them lighting up cigars after the game. If you're playing your interdivision rival on wild card weekend, why are you giving them any kind of mental advantage, any kind of anything that they make them work a little bit harder at practice, go a little bit harder? people will say, oh, it's the playoffs. Like, you don't need extra motivation. Yeah, no shit. Then don't give them anything other than what they already have. So I did think it was funny. You know, I wanted the Seahawks to win, honestly. I just thought, even though he didn't play well, I would like to see more Russell Wilson. But to see Jamal Adams' foolery come back to bite him in the ass is nice to see.
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought that was such a dumb thing to do, acting like we already won the whole thing after you won the division in week 16. Big whoop. You know, it means nothing. But I, as much as I hate to do it, I have to give Jamal Adams credit for playing through a torn labrum. I know a lot of people who've had that injury, and that's not an easy injury to play through. You don't have a lot of movement in your shoulder. You're pretty much limited to just here, depending on where it's torn. So, I mean, he didn't play good. Don't get me wrong. He didn't play well. He missed a lot of tackles. He missed that horrible deep ball to Cooper Kupp, where the ball was literally right here. All he had to do was just kind of close his arms, which I guess now that we found out he had a torn labrum, it's kind of tough to do.
Right.
But like he didn't play well, but I give him the props. He fought through it. He's going to need off-season surgery on the year. He's a free agent. So, you know, I tip the cap to him a little bit. But my overall, the way I break it down is there was good in that game and there was bad. My boom roasted. I'll give you that. Like my boom roasted and my boom toasted. My boom roasted is Pete Carroll for calling a terrible game and falling back into the same traps that he has done for years of running the ball too much in playoff games and not realizing when it's not working anymore. My next boom roasted is Russell Wilson. Throw the ball or run the ball. You're here to make plays. You're elite because you're a playmaker. You don't have to follow what Pete Carroll structures for you all the time. My next boom roasted, DK Metcalf. Stop throwing tantrums. Grow up. You have to understand that the offense that you're in revolves around Russ and revolves around him making plays. When you tried to force the ball, we threw a pick six. When you just kind of let things happen, you caught a touchdown. Let it go. Grow up. My next boom roasted is Jamal Adams. Separate from the fact that he played through a torn labrum, respect that. Get better, or I don't want to see you back. You need to be better in coverage if you're going to be effective on the Seahawks. You go within 10 yards, but past that, it's a joke. My boom toasted. So I would like to toast to these people for having really good seasons. Tyler Lockett, most receptions in team history. Chris Carson, I think this is the last of him we see in a Seahawks uniform because he's going to want big money. But he was really good. I saw a lot of Seahawks fans roasting him for saying he was ineffective. He was averaging 5 or 6 yards a carry. Everyone knew the run was coming. They were trying to establish the run for 3.5 quarters. The guy can only do so much, especially when the pass game isn't working. I love Chris Carson. I don't think he's coming back. I'm sad to see him go. And last one is Jason Myers. The guy didn't miss a field goal all year. I mean, yeah, unbelievable. I'm so glad he's a Seahawk. He was so good. He was the only thing that was working for that Seahawks offense. So those are kind of the big things that my takeaways, my boom roast and my boom toasted. It was a tough loss. It's really upsetting to see a team that had so much potential get kicked in the first round. But the Rams are good. They have a good defense. Jalen Ramsey, after all this shit that went down in Jacksonville, I think people forgot about how good he is. He is possibly the best corner in football. I think it'd be hard to argue against that. And he shut down DK. So, kudos to them. I don't know if they're going to win the next round, but, they played a good game. What can you do? And kudos to Jared Goff, too, for playing through a broken thumb, No,
for sure. No, DK, every game that goes by reminds me more and more of Odell with the Giants, where you're wondering as he's throwing a tantrum on the sideline, why do we put up with this guy? And then he goes for a 70-yard bomb, takes the top off the defense. It's oh, yeah, that's why. So he's obviously very talented, but at the same time, you're right. He really can't be throwing tantrums like that because you see after that, Russ, forcing the ball to him, making some ill-advised throws that, change the game. So it's something that he's going to be going into his third year in the league. He's outside of Russ, I would probably say the biggest part of their offense. He's got to be better. He's got to keep his emotions in check. So I'll end this for you with 2 questions. 1, is Pete Carroll a good coach or not? I know he's won a college championship with USC over a decade ago. I know he won a Super Bowl with the Seahawks. is he a good coach or not? Or was that first Super Bowl a product of having Russell Wilson and an unbelievable secondary? And two, who lost that game for the Seahawks the most? Who do you put the most blame on? Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson, or Macklemore? Because it could go to any of them in my mind.
So I'll answer your first question with this. Pete Carroll runs an incredible organization. The Seahawks culture is, I think, unparalleled. I think together they are a unit that like really believes in the fact that they can win every game. And I think the fans believe it. I think that's why you see why I'm so passionate about it, is because every game that they are playing, you think that, oh, they're down 14 in the fourth quarter. Who cares? We got this. You know, you believe in Russell Wilson, you believe in Pete Carroll, you believe in the ability to scout these guys that you don't expect to make plays that miraculously come up with something crazy. You know, but is his playmaking decisions a problem, and his stubbornness on the field to not make adjustments? Yeah, it's a problem, and it's something that, you know, a lot of the times we let go because of the idea that we sort of believe in this magic of Pete Carroll and the magic of Russell Wilson. But I mean, at some point, you know, it's not working. It's predictable. You know, the magic, I don't want to say it's gone, but it's definitely starting to fade a little bit, and it's become, like I said, very predictable. And you gave me three people. The game's on Macklemore. Macklemore lost that game. What are you doing saying we got this, we're going all the way? Macklemore, nobody cares. Nobody cares what you have to think. Couldn't the Seahawks have gotten anybody else? Like get a former player. Are you kidding me? Don't get Macklemore. Of course he's going to say something stupid and jinx us. So the loss, you could argue, is on Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson, but in reality, this is Macklemore's fault.
Agreed.
Yeah. So my heart is broken, but we will move on and onto the next games. The night game of Saturday, which was Game 3, the Bucs and the Washington Football Team. It was kind of what I expected. The score was a little closer, but I feel like the Bucs had control most of the game. Taylor Heineken, that's my new nickname for him. I think his actual name is Heineke, but I'm going to go with Taylor Heineken because that's cooler. Could kind of ball. You know, he was pretty good. I don't know what their future is with Alex Smith, but I mean, now that they kind of had to get rid of Dwayne Haskins, I mean, he kind of looks pretty good, you know, as a backup option.
I would love to see him become the next Matt Flynn and just get the bag based off of a one-game performance. Yeah, no, he was good in this game. You know, I thought maybe they would be able to hang around, and they kind of did, even though I'm with you. I know it was an 8-point game. At the same time, I never doubted that the Buccaneers were going to win. But you want to talk about a first year for Ron Rivera. Went into that team, we're pretty much completely in shambles. Dwayne Haskins is your quarterback. There was that article in the Washington Post, I think it was, about just how their front office had the most disgusting sexual harassment culture in maybe any office in America, let alone the NFL. To make the playoffs, get a home playoff game, win the division, hang with Tom Brady and the Bucs, I think is a pretty incredible season for them. I think their future is bright. If they get as much as Taylor Heineken balled out on Saturday, I don't think he's the future for them. So, if they draft the right quarterback, that defense is legitimate. They have the right coach in Ron Rivera. It's, future's looking pretty bright in Washington.
Yeah, and if you kind of look back at the history of the organization, it parallels what happened with the Robert Griffin III year and the Kirk Cousins year. So they were both drafted in the same year. But Robert Griffin was obviously the more highly touted prospect, while Kirk Cousins was just kind of projected to be the backup, maybe the third guy, just, another quarterback to have on the roster at a cheap rate. Obviously Robert Griffin went down. His career sort of spiraled because of an injury. He was amazing his rookie year. Sort of a complete opposite situation of what happened with Dwayne Haskins. But the Dwayne Haskins situation is he was terrible, and then obviously went to a strip club, was coach recovering from cancer. This terrible person move. Got waived, and this other quarterback comes in and is really promising. That's exactly what happened with Kirk Cousins. So you're kind of seeing that parallel come up with the same organization, and you kind of wonder if that's what they had in mind when they drafted Haskins. maybe we should get someone that's, works behind him and still has potential. So it's interesting to see that exact parallel. Although I think Heineke was this year, right? This is his rookie year, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, and Haskins obviously a few years more, but yeah, but I mean it kind of has that similar parallel feeling because they both kind of went up and down at the same time.
Right.
Yeah. So moving on to the next game is game 4 of the weekend, the first Sunday game, Ravens-Titans. This was the game wherever who ran the ball better was going to win. Both of them are running-focused teams, obviously with good quarterbacks, good other weapons, but their main focus is the run. Derrick Henry, only 40 yards. Lamar Jackson just went absolutely off on the ground. J.K. Dobbins was awesome too. So this was the game whoever ran the ball better was going to win, and the Ravens did.
Yeah, early on, the Ravens looked like they were going to try and maybe let Lamar do some different things. He had the early interception, and I was thinking, why would I bet on playoff Lamar? It's going to be the same story as the last 2 years. But you're right. Then they just got back to smash mouth football, really just pounding the ball with Dobbins and, Lamar making plays with his feet. The Ravens are hot right now. They kept Derrick Henry in check. J.K. Dobbins is a stud. Lamar Jackson is probably the best playmaking quarterback with his feet since prime Michael Vick. Is that an outrageous statement to make? I don't think anyone else is even close to those two guys when they're doing their thing. So I think it's going to be interesting to see if the Ravens can keep this going and move on because they're a team that I think a lot of people kind of wrote off early in the season, with how they were playing and how well the Steelers were playing, who we'll get to. But I think the way they're playing, anyone, they could beat anybody in the league.
Yeah, I will say, though, if Lamar Jackson has to beat a team by throwing the ball, that will be a problem. That interception was terrible. It looked like if Big Ben punted a ball with a walking boot on.
Yeah.
It was gross.
Oh, so let me rephrase. The Ravens can beat anybody as long as it's a close game and, they have a lead. They cannot play from behind. They absolutely cannot.
Yeah. Absolutely not. That will be a huge problem the second Lamar Jackson has to rely on his arm.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to what was next, Game 5, the Nickelodeon game, the Saints versus the Bears. I unfortunately didn't get to see the Nickelodeon broadcast, so I had to watch it on CBS. It just wasn't working for me. I have Hulu. Hulu has live TV. Hulu is a joke. I will say that now. Hulu is not a sponsor, so we're good. We're sponsored by YouTube. I don't know. We're big fans of YouTube. Unfortunately, my Trubisky prediction didn't come true. He did not win the game, but he did back the Bears into a corner by winning the MVP. I mean, how do you not pay this guy millions of dollars now?
Watching that go down in real time was so funny because originally Twitter was like, let's get Jameis the MVP because that would be hilarious. Everyone loves Jameis. I don't even know if he's stepped on the field at all this year, so to get him the MVP in a playoff game would be funny. But they limited the options, so Mitch was on there. So Twitter decided collectively we're all voting for Mitch. Obviously got it trending, and it was so funny watching in real time. They were updating throughout the third and fourth quarters, how the voting is going, and they're like Mitch Trubisky in the lead, and then you have Nate Burleson sitting there trying to explain why Mitch could get this award, to the kids, yeah, you don't have to win. It's a good example of someone showing up and playing hard. And how pissed off do you think Mitch Trubisky was after the game when some Nickelodeon intern came up to him being yeah, here's your MVP.
They're probably just, are you kidding? Hey, is this an actual joke? Is there slime in this thing? Are you going to slime me?
I think getting an award as a joke, immediately knowing you were a joke online has to be worse than getting snubbed for an award you deserve, right? I'd rather not get an award I deserve than get an award I didn't deserve and I'm only getting because people are mocking me.
Oh, yeah. Getting an award you think you deserve, you almost get praised for it. You almost get, talked up. You know what I mean? Oh, not only should he have gotten the award, he should have been, first team or whatever. People just,
right.
You're oh, he sounds so underrated. But this is just,
Russell Wilson is the best player to never get an MVP vote.
Yeah, exactly. Now Russell Wilson sounds like God. Right. but Mr. Trubisky getting that joke of an award as a joke is just doubling down on a horrible playoff loss too, where he probably just lost his job. Just piling it up.
The thing is, though, Mitch threw an absolute dime on, early on in the game. If that gets caught, we could be talking about, maybe a different game. I don't know. I mean, the Saints definitely looked like they were clearly superior, but I don't know if the Bears get an early touchdown, that they really didn't take any other deep shots after that. Like, they had the one that worked and was just dropped, and then Matt Nagy was like, all right, we're just going to establish the run and throw screens and punt every 3 plays.
Yeah, Matt Nagy's taking a page out of Pete Carroll's book. I got myself aggravated again. Final game, Game 6, Steelers versus the Browns. Everyone thought this was going to be – I mean, some people were saying Ravens-Titans game of the week. I thought this was going to be it. I thought the Steelers were going to show up a little bit more. 28-0 to start. Absolutely unbelievable. I have 3 storylines coming out of this game. 1, Browns are legit. Baker is good. I think that's undoubtable. 2, the Steelers need to shut up. The receivers need to stop talking. It's just like the Jamal Adams situation. You're giving these other teams way too much motivation, and you're making people start to hate you. And 3, the Big Ben and the Mike Tomlin era is probably over. Whether it's one of them or both of them being gone, that era of football that I kind of felt for a long time was just unbreakable is probably done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, listen, everyone was on the Steelers all week, given the fact that, the Browns had some guys out to COVID. They didn't have their head coach who also calls the plays. So I think a lot of people thought that the Steelers would kind of figure things out and, maybe win big potentially. No, but the Browns just established themselves as the clearly superior team. You said it. Baker has been great really all year. Even when things started to get a little bit closer in the second half and the Steelers started to come back a little bit, anytime they needed a long drive, a big play, Baker was coming up big for them. So that was really great to see. I can't believe the lengths that Juju Smith-Schuster went to piss off the Browns, as if they needed any more motivation to play a divisional opponent in the playoffs. And I alluded to this before when I was brought up the bulletin board material with Jamal Adams smoking a cigar after they won the division. Juju with the Browns is the Browns comment, calling them nameless gray faces. And the crazy thing was, like, you could tell he was trying to say something like neutral, but like, if you're going to talk about your opponent, like, just like, it's not hard to give the cut and dry, like, yeah, we're looking forward to a great game. Like, they won 10 games. They have a lot of talented guys. Like, it's like, I could come off with fucking 50 boring athlete euphemisms off the top of my head to say. Like, yeah, I don't know why he felt the need to say that. Like, the Browns is the Browns. And you can't tell me that it wasn't fuel for them. Like, Baker said it immediately post-game, the Browns is the Browns. They're posting captions, the Browns is the Browns. They're playing Corvette. And then there's the counter-argument, like, oh, well, Juju showed up. He had 158 yards and a touchdown. Sure, Juju showed up. That doesn't discount the fact that he put a target on his entire team's back. Yeah. They came out and, went down 28-0, and it was clearly, like, I get it. Like, yeah, obviously it's a playoff game. Both teams want to win. But these guys are competing at the highest level. Any extra motivation you could give them, you don't want to give them. So yeah, I can't believe he said that still. And then for Chase Claypool to the next day say, oh, they're going to get clapped by the Chiefs, it's fine, as if that's some kind of, like, retort. That's literally like something in 3rd grade you say in recess after you lose in kickball. Oh, at least they lost the next game. Like, dude, fuck you. You got embarrassed on your home field by your division rival who's been a joke for the past 20 years up until now. Maybe keep quiet until next season.
Yeah. And let's not forget, Juju had 158 yards, but Big Ben threw the ball 54 times.
Yeah, he threw for 500 yards. Are we talking about that as a good performance? No.
Yeah. Big Ben was bad. He threw 4 touchdowns because they were coming back, and the Browns were in prevent defense since the 2nd quarter.
Yeah.
So let's relax a little bit.
No, seriously.
And speaking of Big Ben, like I alluded to, you kind of think it's the end. There are reports that Mike Tomlin might be out of Pittsburgh. I think they're just kind of thinking it's time for a change. I disagree with that. I think Tomlin's a great coach. He's kept a lot of people intact. He's been through the Antonio Brown era, and Steelers never really faulted at that. I think it would be a huge mistake to get rid of him. I think you just got to revamp around him. But Big Ben crying at the end was definitely sad because you're starting to see the end of an era. You can't put a walking boot on a broken heart.
No. RIP. Big Ben is crazy because I don't think a rapist has ever entrenched themselves in the hearts of people more than Big Ben. Like it's crazy. I don't know why. Like he's just a guy. Like you just look at him. He's just like fat. He's got the beard. He's kind of mopey. Like you want to think he's lovable. So like yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna miss watching Big Ben play and sling the ball around. But back to Tomlin, I don't think they're gonna fire him because the Steelers have literally had 3 head coaches in the Super Bowl era. Like they just don't fire coaches. But I don't know what to think because you touched on it. Like he's been through the AB era, Le'Veon Bell holding out, now Juju and Claypool. So is he a really good coach for being able to, get to the playoffs and win as many games as he does through all that dysfunction? Or is he a terrible coach who's let his locker room go to absolute shit the past 5 years, and that's what's holding them back from being a Super Bowl team?
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a different take on it. I mean, I think you would really have to kind of figure out what's going on, like in that locker room. But yeah, like you kind of make a good point that no one's really made. Everyone's kind of always touted how well Mike Tomlin has handled the situation, but why are you letting it get to that situation almost every year now? You know? So, I mean, there's definitely something to consider. I still think that he's done such a good job from a football perspective that it would be tough to change it. I'd like you said, the Steelers kind of only have had 3 coaches. So it wouldn't make sense to make a change. I just think you got to maybe find your new quarterback, you don't need to rebuild that defense. That defense is legit. I just got to make sure the guys get re-signed, which they did note that a lot of the guys, they got to make a lot of signings. So, I mean, if they were ever to make the changes, right now is the time. I think that's why people are kind of starting to lean towards those rumors. But I think Mike Tomlin is the guy you rebuild around.
Yeah, no, I definitely wouldn't fire Mike Tomlin. I think he's a great coach still. I'm just wondering how a guy who's been around as long as he has, as respected as he has this much dysfunction in his locker room. So maybe it's just a matter of cutting, some of the bad eggs. Maybe it's just honestly, not to pin it on him, but maybe it's just Big Ben not really caring too much about locker room culture in his old age, figuring he's going to get towards the end. Anyway, I don't know what it is, but regardless, I think Mike Tomlin will be back. We'll see a new quarterback in Pittsburgh next year. And like you said, if things go to plan and they make the right moves, get the right guys in, and shit calms down, they'll be a Super Bowl contender next year with that defense. Absolutely.
Yeah, I did predict, and I don't know how I still feel about it. It was kind of an in a moment thing. I do think Sam Darnold potentially goes to Pittsburgh just because they do kind of run a similar style. They would actually offer him some protection and some actual weapons, assuming they just try to get rid of Big Ben and just kind of have a real, just someone step in who's relatively capable. And he would come at a pretty low cost of not having to use your first round pick on a quarterback, maybe get him for a 3rd rounder or something like that, maybe even a little less. So I think that's something they might try and then maybe blow it up the year after that, just while they still have this elite defense. So I don't know. It's something to consider. I do think that that's a possibility, but the more I picture, I just don't see Sam Darnold in the Steelers uniform. I just can't picture it.
Steelers and Colts, I think, are the 2 most likely landing spots for him. I don't think he'll be a Jet. I don't know how you can bring him back when A, he wasn't Joe Douglas's draft pick in the first place, and B, he spent all year listening to how he's going to be gone because they're getting Trevor Lawrence. So I don't think – I would be shocked if Sam Darnold is still a Jet week 1.
Yeah. Yeah, so speaking of Trevor Lawrence, we'll transition a little into college football. Last night, we're recording this on Tuesday, was the college football final. Alabama absolutely spanked Ohio State. If it wasn't for Devontae Smith getting hurt he didn't play the second half. I don't remember exactly when he got hurt because it kind of mullied in with the end of the first half. But if he had played in the second half, it would have been probably more. They won by 20 right now, but it could have been 30, 35. So it was Alabama's game. I did think Justin Fields would play a little better. I thought the Ohio State defense would keep it relatively close. I thought, I bet +9. I thought it would be an 8-point win, but clearly Alabama was just too good. Nick Saban gets his 6th national championship with Alabama. And I saw a stat today. I don't know if this is true. Someone just could have tweeted it, but I believe it, that every person that Nick Saban has recruited has won a national championship in Alabama.
I was going to say that too. I think it is true. It would make sense. He's won 6. It would make sense.
Because, people can't technically like leave if they leave early for the draft until 3 years, and for people who aren't getting drafted, they stay 4. Like it kind of lines up. Like I didn't fact check it, but I'm gonna assume since it was on Twitter, it's true, right?
I'm gonna choose to believe it. Yeah, everything on Twitter is true. So
yeah, but I still go back to my take from a few weeks ago that you need to expand the college football playoffs. Otherwise, we're just going to see the same thing again next year. It was the lowest ratings. I heard this on WFAN. It was the lowest ratings for a college football final in like 16 years or something like that. So I think that's a factor of, one, it being a COVID season, a lot of people not being as interested, and two, people just not caring that, oh, cool, Alabama's going to win again. Oh, cool, Ohio State's even in it again, even if they are a little different than what it usually is. Like, you got to see something different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, the only thing more predictable than college football is the NBA. Like, just both of them, you could just, like, I always say the NBA, like, wake me up for the conference finals. Like, for college football, it's literally like the championship game. Even the championship game, I thought it would be close, but, like, I feel like everyone kind of knew Alabama was going to win. Devontae Smith putting in an absolute all-time performance. But, no, not that many notes on the game. My only thing, and I've been saying this for a while, Monday night is the worst time to have a championship game. Like, I get that they don't want to go against football, but, like, think outside the box here. Like, throw it on a Thursday, throw it on a Friday or something. I don't know. My idea, if they do expand the playoff, space things out a little bit better, put it on the Saturday in between conference championship week and the Super Bowl, since there's that off week. Like, do something so we're not watching the biggest college football game of the year on a Monday night. It's the essence of stupidity.
Yeah, everyone hates Mondays. Why put the biggest game?
Stupid. So stupid.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree 100%. There definitely is some work that needs to be done, but let's also not forget that it is the NCAA, and they are an absolute joke of an organization.
I think the best way to get this to happen is say that if they don't move it from Monday, they're going to have to start paying their athletes and, like, actually doing something for them besides giving them fake educations. So if we scare them with that, maybe we could bully them into moving it to a different day.
Yeah, right. I'm going to write that down. Yeah.
Okay.
Noted. Moving on to, unfortunately, really the only big NBA news that's happening right now. Obviously, there's a lot going on with COVID in the NBA right now. A lot of players are out either with COVID itself or having to quarantine from exposure. The NBA is getting hit pretty hard by it right now. Hopefully, they can get everything under control. But in terms of what's going on, I guess outside of that, to a degree, is everything going on with Kyrie Irving. A video today surfaced of him being at his sister's birthday party without a mask inside. And this comes a few days after he just kind of decided not to play. It was first reported as regards to he's protesting the Capitol, which is totally understood. But I think at this point, if he really wanted to protest it, it seems like this is coming at a lot more of a distraction as opposed to bringing attention to it. Just like, it's just like it seems like there's a lot going on with Kyrie Irving, and this is sort of as predicted,
This whole situation tears me in two different directions. I'll tell you why. So, as a Knicks fan, I want nothing more than to rip on Kyrie Irving and laugh at this, because I was told a year and a half ago that it was hilarious that the Knicks didn't land KD and Kyrie, that this was going to be the next big thing. So I think that, the fact that it's 7 games into the season and he's just gone AWOL and is, let's be honest, he's not really protesting. He skipped the first game and didn't even tell Steve Nash why, didn't even let him know. Then the next day, said it was about the Capitol or the Breonna Taylor verdict, which, listen, those are noble causes to support if that's what you're going to support. But I don't think he ever even came out and publicly said that. That was just rumored. And now the video coming out of him maskless at his sister's birthday party with a group of a decent amount of people, out of the club, when clearly the NBA is going through a COVID problem right now, just really doing something he shouldn't be, putting himself, his teammates, his coaches at risk. I want to rip on that and laugh and say this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen from the Nets for signing this guy who's lost his mind. The only reason I don't completely want to go towards that angle is because maybe there is something deeper there from a mental health aspect for Kyrie. A couple months ago, we saw Dak Prescott come forward and say, he battled depression this year with the lockdowns and, his brother passing away, and we all praised him for it, and rightfully so. We need to be, have a more open conversation in America about mental health. It shouldn't be viewed as a stigma. So the only thought in the back of my mind is maybe something is going on with Kyrie mentally where he's too afraid to ask for the help and come forward with it. But at the same time, it's still not an excuse for violating protocol, ditching your team without an excuse. So I get it. Maybe there is some, something going on mentally that he's not ready to come forward with yet. But at the same time, it's kind of infuriating watching him do all these things that just scream that he doesn't care about his teammates, the fans, anybody, when he hasn't been transparent with us at all.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you, kind of in a separate way, though. I'm torn like you, but I'm more torn in the fact that I can't tell if this is someone who's like just kind of has like a media problem and like a public perception problem, where it's like the fact that it's like, oh, like he did this in Cleveland when he wanted to get away from LeBron. He did this in Boston, when he says I'm going to stay and then leaves, and now he's kind of doing it in Brooklyn. And I don't know if it's someone who just doesn't know how to handle like a big media presence and is just kind of like, kind of like a jerk when it comes down to it, and only thinks about himself. Or if this is, like kind of like a nagging mental health problem where he really needs, if that's the case, then he needs to take a season off and really evaluate himself and get himself right. Not even when it comes in terms of basketball, when it comes in terms of the rest of his life. He's a young guy. He's got to like really just get his head right. And if this is in regards to the protest, then sure. But it's the more you see everything coming out, the more it kind of feels a little less about that. And I'm torn between it being someone who's just like a problem, person, or if it's like just long-term mental health that he's really got to, take the time. People around him have got to say, hey, Kyrie, like you got to figure this out and like really take the time to focus on it. Step away from basketball. At the end of the day, it's only a game. Like get yourself right.
Right. No, 100%. Like I said, I'll say if it's a deeper mental health issue, if he's battling depression or something that we don't know what's going on, it is nobody's business to comment on that. He really shouldn't, he can never pick up a basketball again for all we're concerned. It doesn't matter. He has to get himself right. That's the priority. But if it's not a mental health issue, if it's just a case of him thinking he doesn't have to, really answer to anybody because, I don't know, he's already accomplished what he wants to accomplish and he doesn't have any sense of, of needing to prove anything to the media or the fans or his teammates or anybody, then at least play, man. Like if you want to use your platform for, talk about the Capitol, talk about whatever, then play. Like no athlete uses their platform to do good more than LeBron James, I don't think. And he plays. So like, say what you want to say. Like, I'm sure the NBA and the Nets would be more than happy to give him a platform to pursue whatever he wants to, but like show up and play the games. And if you're not going to play the games, then at least tell people why. So it's something for me. I really do hope we get more details on it because I'm hesitant to hammer the guy because I don't know the full extent of it. But if it turns out he's just doing this just because and to be a pain, then that's absolutely infuriating, or at least has to be if you're a Nets fan.
Yeah, and it becomes so much more of a distraction than it needs to be. If you're like, hey, I need to take some time off, Kevin Love did it, like, do it. People will be like, sure, go for it. And it's quiet. But right now, like this silence that he's taking and now like going out to the sisters, it becomes a huge distraction. And it's, you're taken away from your team, and more than the fact that you're just not playing. You're taken away because now that everyone's got to worry about this issue as opposed to the game. Yep. So again, not going to hammer the guy. We don't know the whole situation. I think it's pending right now. Obviously, then there actually is an investigation going into what happened with his sister and everything, how much he needs to quarantine and such. So maybe we'll know more by next week and we can kind of go into it a little deeper. But right now, that's kind of all we have. Big week in the NFL again. What is this? This is the divisional round, right? That's what it's. I always forget the names of the weeks. So this is the divisional round. We got some big games coming up. So looking forward to seeing that. And now it's kind of just no college football. NBA, nobody really cares about. So it's full swing into football right now. And look out for our MLB offseason video. That's coming soon. A lot of new updates. Liam Hendricks, Francisco Lindor, a lot of big things happening. So we're starting to see some movement. So that video is coming out soon. Just keep an eye for that.
Yep.
All right. See you guys next week.
Later, guys.